In a moment, we'll start collecting clues as to the whys, the whats, and the wheres.
And I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Can you hear that? We will not end the nightmare, we'll only explain it.
How often do you hear about major media corporations running clandestine paranormal research studies? Yeah, not very often. But that's exactly what has happened behind the walls at Sony. Yeah, that's Sony. We'll tell you all about Sony's secret program and what they discovered on tonight's show. But first, we have to announce that Nessie is back. That is according to the man who spotted it more than a dozen times. Strangely, his fellow Nessie watchers say he's full of it. Are they just jealous? Well, I don't know. And if you want to believe, you're in luck because the X-Files are real, according to an insider's report. Sadly, it may not be real for very much longer if Elon Musk has his way. Finally, we're going to go full true crime in our off-normal segment at the end of the show, where we dive into 3 cases of very bizarre badness. There's a lot to talk about tonight, so here we go. I'm your host, Fiasco Jones. Welcome to Oddnormal's What in the Weird, the show that really comes into its own after the 5th date. I'm joined by my co-host, Cold Coffee, who once dressed up as a cop for a Halloween party and was forced to stay in character for a full 7 months after meeting the woman because she thought he was a real cop and he didn't have the nerve to come clean. He talks all about it in his one-man play, You're Under Duress. Want to hear something strange? Nessie is back in 2025, according to Nessie enthusiast Owen O'Fowdhagen. He believes he has captured the first sighting of the year. Monitoring a live cam, he observed a significant disturbance in the water's surface, accompanied by a long, dark shape moving through Loch Ness. O'Fowdhagen asserts that this could be the elusive cryptid that has fascinated many for decades. Of course, the story does not stop there, though. Despite having spotted the creature more than a dozen times, O'Fowdhagen is something of a controversial character in the Nessie scene, which is a real thing, the Nessie scene, if you didn't know. It's all about how the fact that he uses webcams to make his sightings. And much like his latest claim, many of his reported sightings only amount to a disturbance to the water or some kind of like little branch or whatever, or something poking out. Because of poor quality sightings like these, a vocal faction of Loch Ness watchers have denounced the practice of using webcams entirely. Unsurprisingly, this has led many to call out O'Fowdhagen's claims as mere misidentifications at best, because some think that he might just be just calling bull on the whole thing.
Did you watch the video?
I did not.
That
actually.
Was it. It is nothing. When he says there's disturbances, I was like, where's the disturbance? Where's the disturbance?
No, I did.
It's like,
it literally looks like, it does look like water churning, but that's pretty much all it looks like, right?
I didn't even see the water. It just looked like waves in the water, I mean, maybe, or whatever. I mean, I get it if he wants to use a webcam because it's easy. You could just have it set up and you just point it. But it's like, usually if it's the footage that I saw, it was like a wide shot. And then, it's pixelated. Whether that could have just been bad pixelation at the time. And then, oh, look, it's a disturbance. You don't have any clear image. But I watched, it's funny because I was joking about how this guy probably gets great views because if you got a sucker like me, I watched the video like 20 times trying to see anything in this video. And he's just like, yes, keep clicking. Look at this click count. And it's like 10 of us trying to see something in the video. I love the fact that there's still somebody trying to shoot stuff, but I can see why a lot of the doubters are like, bro, get a real camera, because if any sort of just like pixelation, you could say, look, that's a disturbance. It's like, well, I can't dispute that because all I have is like, you see this blurb on the
right,
video.
It can be anything.
It can be anything.
Yeah. It did seem like the perennial problem in this field, be it ghosts or cryptids or UFOs. It's always that you're going to get the guy who just takes potato photos of stuff and says, look, it's a Sasquatch, or, oh, that's a UFO. And you're like, I don't know what the hell that is. Like, I mean, that could be anything. And it's just the push and pull. Some people think that's legitimate. Some people are like, no, man, no, just. And I don't know. I will say I have been this O'Fowdehagen guy has popped up so many times since I've been kind of like just in the world of the paranormal stuff. And it's always this guy. When it's like Nessie's been spotted, it's this guy. So I kind of feel also for the other Nessie people, the purists.
Yeah, I love how you made it sound like there's like a faction. Like, so there's like a conference every year. They all show up.
There
and like
probably is.
There probably is.
Don't think that there probably is not a conference. I guarantee you there's probably several conferences every year.
And always on the topic is there was something about production value. They're like, guys, when you're filming stuff, don't use a potato and don't use the camera that Mr. Foudhagen uses over and over. It's like, please focus your cameras.
Put some money in your equipment.
Put some money into your equipment, you know. So every year it's probably like there's the what's he doing now bit of the show. But I love that he's trying. I love that he's trying.
Everyone has their hobbies. So yeah, I mean,
yeah.
My hat's tipped to Owen O'Fowdehagen's constant vigilance. You know, he's out there. What else do you got for me?
Hey, did you know that the real X-Files has been revealed?
No.
Earlier this month, the existence of a clandestine FBI working group dedicated to investigating unidentified anomalous phenomena was revealed to the public. Turns out the X-Files really do exist, which is good for me because I absolutely loved that show.
Hey, that warms my heart, actually. Yes.
I was a huge X-Files fan. According to Ryan Graves, the executive director of Americans for Safe Aerospace, ASA, and a former Navy pilot, the team comprises over a dozen agents nationwide who focus on tracking and analyzing this mysterious occurrences.
That's way more than just Mulder and Scully.
I know. Well, I mean,
in the real world, this department actually gets funding. Look at that.
You give me Scully. That's all you need, man. I would be her Mulder any day. Yes.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Fair enough. Now enter Doge and Elon Musk's insane scorched earth approach to government, and those involved fear that the group's future might not exist. Some agents who have been also involved in January 6 investigations fear the potential dismissal and anticipated agency restructuring. We've already seen that go crazy. Mm-hmm. I think, it's like literally an ongoing firefight for all those guys. It's feared that such changes could inadvertently compromise ongoing UAP investigations.
I know. And
I want to believe, but that Elon won't stop being a stupid jerk. And I better not kill the X-Files or me and Elon are going to have some serious words.
I think it's too late to assume that he won't. I feel like that, like you just said, I mean, he's going after the CIA. He already purged the FBI.
I mean, you figure if I was going in there and I knew I could get access to anything, just along the same lines when they were like, we're gonna put out all the Kennedy, assassination knowledge that we have. The first thing I'd be like, yo, X-Files, tell me the shit's real, right? Like, tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
But how do you put a guy that has clearly his own interests in space and everything out there in charge of a group or to possibly give him the power to dismantle a group that would be focusing on that when he wants to look at it himself? He's probably got a wing of his company, doing, and I guarantee he's not doing this all out of the gracious of his heart. He's not I just want to make this better. No, I don't want a penny of the US money. I'm just doing this to save money.
Yeah.
And in his mind, he's like, well, if I could do this for $8 million a day by cutting $1 billion of expenditure a day, it's a positive. Mm-hmm. It's a positive,
I should also say that a possible reason why this X-Files is in danger is because Musk has been on record saying that he thinks UFOs are BS. So,
he's a bunch of BS.
Yes, he's unlikable in so many ways, and the fact that he doesn't.
It's like you're naming your kid all that weird whack ass shit, and you're trying to tell me you don't believe in aliens. Like,
right? He's too good for it. He's not too good to pretend to be the greatest Diablo 4 player, but he is too good to believe in UFOs. Like he's willing to like die on the mountain of like, no, I really am the best, even though it's clearly he's paying someone to do it.
But I hope he does not, because the X-Files, maybe it's just because I'm a diehard fan. I love the fact that there is a real group that studies it, because I was so fascinated with the idea of that, we want to believe that there's all this crazy stuff out there, to actually have somebody that's an investigator and has the resource to be able to look into that stuff. I'm like, please do, like, bring it to light. And when you find it, share it. Don't keep it secret. Let us know.
That's the real key. So like, stop trying to hide it. Just like, give us an annual report of the weird stuff that's been happening. Annual report
would be awesome.
Right. All right, moving on. Since the escalation of the conflict in Ukraine in 2022, a notable number of Russians have increasingly turned to fortune tellers and practitioners of witchcraft to navigate the uncertainties of wartime. In 2024, expenditures on services from psychics, astrologers, and related practitioners reached 2.4 trillion rubles, which in real money is $24 billion, accounting for more than 4% of the nation's food expenditures. The surge in demand for esoteric services has not gone unnoticed by authorities. For instance, in Chechnya, there was a crackdown on individuals practicing occultism, with public humiliations and forced apologies becoming more common. How fun. what
forced apologies. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm silly. I like the occult. My bad.
I did some tarot. Please forgive me. Light divination. This reflects a tension between traditional religious values and the populace's turn towards alternative spiritual practices in times of crisis. And it should be noted that all things non-traditional in the non-traditional spirituality realm have been rising everywhere in the West. Since 2020, social media has exploded with communities focused on Wicca, heathenry, neo-paganism, and the occult more generally. Of course, I think we've all heard the stories of like witch talk, and the social media witches are just exploding everywhere. Some of it, I think, was a reaction to Trump, and some of it was a reaction to COVID. But yeah, and I think there's something. Yeah, that's a great Trump. He's a little tiny mouth. But there's something to the fact that like during these kind of really stressful moments, people turn to
whatever.
Yeah. Things that, but they're also turning away from traditional religion. Because I think those have been co-opted too much by the state. And so they're like, okay, well, I want to find something more personal, more meaningful, and probably not tainted, which is weird because forever the occult has been tainted by the establishment church as, a bastion of evil.
I was going to say, who said it was tainted? Those guys.
Yeah. So it's, I personally think it's great that it's having its day in the sun, that it's resurging. There are these cycles where, the ideas of the occult keep coming back. The 70s was a big one. The 80s. I don't know if you remember the Time Life series when they came out, the Mysteries of the Unknown, and that series like sold like hotcakes for Time Life books. That's when they advertised books on television. Children, if you didn't know that, there was an era when that was happened, and you just call in the number and call now, and you'll get psychic
what is
minds.
A book?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You're right. I should put
what are those
back a
things behind you?
Those are called analog computers.
How does that fit into my iPad or my phone?
Yeah. There's these cycles, and it's like I think we're in another big one right now that's just kind of bubbling, and who knows if anyone will give it up this time, and or we're just going to go into a nice re-enchantment, which we need to be a re-enchantment, folks.
I mean, you figure everything kind of comes in cycles. You have fashion comes in cycles. And what's in, and in times when people, lives are, maybe upturned, you're going to start looking for answers, or at least just looking for entertainment, looking for comfort. And sometimes the traditional, methods out there, like he's mentioned, are just not for everybody. They tend to come from their own sense of corrupt systems, and they have their own badness, and sometimes, that stuff's been thrown down our throats so much since we were kids that you want something that's completely opposite. And in times of like war and when people are hurting, like this stuff, people just want to find comfort. They want to find something that would just put their mind on something else. So I'm definitely not surprised with there being, definitely an uptick in these sort of things.
I'm also not surprised that the dictator of Chechnya would have such a shitty reaction to it. That piece of shit.
He's a bit of a piece of work. Yeah.
What else you got for me?
Hey, another marketing department is taking flack for trying to do their job. Sadly, the real victim might be the majestic Yeti.
Oh, the majestic Yeti.
The Yeti. You see, in 2020, Nepal's Visit Nepal 2020 tourism campaign introduced over 100 fiberglass Yeti statues, each costing approximately $4,500 to promote the country. However, these statues sparked controversy due to their design. You see, people were furious that the statues weren't Yeti enough. Instead, they complained that the statues looked more like a Japanese sumo wrestler rather than a mystical ape-like creature.
I mean, if you're gonna get angry at anything, that I think is a legitimate reason. Your
they
don't
want the hairless yet. They need to have hair, right? They can't just be
and maybe a little feral. I don't know what. I mean, honestly, like I think your mileage may vary on what a Yeti's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
But I think that, hairy, somewhat, ape-like and, just weird looking, a little weirdness.
The designer of the maligned Yeti sculptures, Eng Sharon Sherpa, said, "I did not make Yeti sketch by reading any book," he explained. "On the basis of stories that I heard in my childhood and having Lord Buddha at the back of my mind, I made the design."
Fair enough.
Interesting. In response to public outcry, authorities removed the statues from prominent locations in Kathmandu. The campaign's organizers defended the design, emphasizing creative freedom and the intention to present the Yeti as a symbol of peace and uniqueness for Nepal. I would say there's certain things that you can take a little bit of creative license, but when it comes to the Yeti, it's got to be hairy, dog. Like, it's got to be some hair. It's got to be weird. You can't just have it look like sumo wrestlers.
Right, like a smooth, big, hulking fat man. That's the actual picture that they have of it. It's just kind of like, it is like Buddha-like but it's also just smooth.
Where if he's saying like he's taking Buddha into account, I get that, but like hairless cats. I love cats. Hairless cats are fucking weird. Like when I think if I want a cat, I'm envisioning in my head, I'm not envisioning a wrinkly cat, skin, just nothing but skin cat. And so when I'm thinking Yeti, it does not look like a sumo wrestler.
And also, the other big surprise to me is that Yeti is a symbol of peace. I'll be the first to say, I don't know much about Yetis other than they live in the Himalayas. They are impervious to the snow.
No.
So I'm assuming they live there and they, why else if you weren't impervious?
High altitude. Yeah.
But I did not hear that they were symbols of peace. Because, I think the North American comparison is Bigfoot. And I wouldn't say Bigfoot is a symbol of peace. If anything, he's a symbol of rugged outdoorsmanship.
Likes beef jerky.
Yeah, he likes the beef jerky. He's really strong, and that's about it. He
likes his solitude.
And he likes to chill with the Hendersons.
Yeah,
and that's it. Yeah,
his name might be Harry.
Yeah. So it's interesting to me that maybe in Nepal, Yetis are just that's the Nemi Neko cat that is doing the little hand. It's a symbol of peace or luck or whatever.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah,
it's weird.
I don't know. That's one that kind of surprised me. I'm like, interesting. I learned something new. Unless these people are just trying to just throw shade because they're throwing everything at. It's it looks like Buddha or a sumo wrestler has no hair and it doesn't look peaceful enough. And I will say, if anything, it looks quite serene and peaceful. That's the one thing I have to give it is that his statues
Buddha bless you.
Very, very, very serene. So, all right. A man did some murder after getting spooked by a ghost detecting device. Unfortunately, it's not the first time people have killed in the name of strangeness. We go full true crime in our Oddnormal segment at the end of the show. But first, it's not often that you hear about a major corporation having interest in the paranormal. Turns out that Sony has been funding a secret study into the paranormal for 7 years. 7 years. We'll talk about what they were studying and why when we come back.
would you explain it? A woman in Wisconsin is doing the dishes when suddenly she's possessed by a terrifying feeling. She's positive that her young daughter has just been in an accident. She quickly makes a desperate phone call, only to learn that her feeling was true. How would you explain this? A dozen people around the world who never met each other describe an encounter with a being from space, and their descriptions of the creature match almost exactly. And how do you explain this? A man's heart stops beating in a hospital, and he sees a blinding light that doesn't frighten him, but fills him with an indescribable feeling of peace. And how can you explain the growing number of people who feel that they've had a brush with something beyond our everyday understanding? Maybe no one can fully explain these things, but they can no longer be ignored. That's why Time Life takes a serious look into this world with a remarkable new series, Mysteries of the Unknown, to provide an objective and comprehensive look at what may lie beyond our ordinary reality. How can you explain this? 4 men are drawn to an ancient Anglo-Saxon fort, site of a fierce battle. They enter the shadows of a ring of trees, and without warning, one of them is grabbed by an unseen force, lifted 5 feet in the air, and suspended for 30 full seconds. There are so many hints of a world more remarkable than we ever imagined, and of abilities that we barely suspect.
Mommy, all I could think of was you. I know.
Send for your first volume on a free trial basis and see if you can explain these things away.
To order your first book, Mystic Places, call 1-800-548-4600.
In the early 1990s, Sony ventured into the realm of the paranormal by establishing the ESPER Lab, short for Extrasensory Perception and the Excitation Research. Initiated by mathematician Yoichiro Sako. I hope I said his name, Yoichiro Sako. Initiated by mathematician Yoichiro Sako, the lab focused on studying phenomena such as clairvoyance, telepathy, and the concept of chi, or life energy. One notable experiment involved a young schoolgirl who reportedly demonstrated remarkable clairvoyant abilities. Sako emphasized that these studies relied on simple, low-tech methods, suggesting that advanced technology wasn't necessary to explore these phenomena. Despite these intriguing findings, though, Sony eventually closed the ESPER Lab. Boo.
Boo.
The reasons behind its closure remain speculative, with some suggesting that the company couldn't find practical applications for the research, meaning they couldn't make money off of it, while others believe the discoveries were too inconclusive or controversial to pursue further. This chapter in Sony's history highlights a period when the company explored the boundaries between technology and the unexplained, reflecting a unique blend of scientific curiosity and open-mindedness. And something else too that I think you might find a little bit interesting is as to how close Esper got to creating a commercial side product is up for debate. Several years ago, a Sony spokesman named Masanobu told the South China Morning Post, we found out experimentally that ESP exists. In the same interview, when asked by a reporter from Fortean Times if Sony had any side-based products in work, he flashed a great big friendly smile, and after a long delay and a vigorous shake of his head, said there are no products. Not yet.
Not yet.
According to former FBI agent and current board member of the parapsychologically focused Rhine Research Center, Bill Higgins, Sako was onto something. According to him, the words dermacyte and touchcyte seem to have a special meaning for Sony researchers. Dermacyte. What could that be?
I don't know.
Like see through the skin? Like the dermis?
Or you touch, I'm thinking like the dead zone, you know, like the guys, you can touch someone and see
into their life and see their future, see whatever.
Or see like touch a phone and find out like who's this belong to. And
gotcha. Which would help, you know, because we were talking the other day about somebody finding a missing person, you know, with using different things. Like if you could find like, give me a piece of their clothing. We used to always see that. They used to always show up in movies when somebody's like, give me a piece of clothing or something. And you pick it up and you're like, oh, I'm sensing they're in the woods, blah, 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 blah. I can see where they're at, you know, like how cool is that shit though?
Yeah,
like that's like so cool.
In fact, that part right there, now that you bring it up, that's it just shows kind of how the intertwined, or maybe even how far back psychic phenomena exist, because that idea of having a piece of the person's property or their like hair or whatever, that's in magical things, it's called sympathetic magic, where if you have something, it's a like it, and like is like. So if you have that's why how voodoo dolls are supposed to work, is that you're supposed to collect pieces of them, and then that creates a connection between you, the voodoo doll, and the person. So in this case, like when someone's like, I need a piece of the cloth so I can focus in on them, it's kind of, again, shows that there is that connection between the old practices of ritual magic and what we now call psychic. And it is, I'm sure back in the day they weren't ever separated, but now they are, because now people are leaning toward a scientific solution or answer for why a handful, like telepathy, clairvoyance, premonition, people think those are like good candidates for study, and other stuff is like, I don't know. But these are the ones that are getting lumped into the parapsychology rubric. So it is interesting, but there is clearly they have their hands in their their little magical origins. It is an interesting story though, and clearly, like all of these, they have more questions than answers, because like, why would Sony want to start a project like this? It is a for-profit business, unless they really, really, really felt that, oh yeah, there's money behind us. So I mean, clearly the people that on the very, very top were like, yeah, sci's a real thing. Let's pursue that.
Well, and the funny thing is that, they wanted to make money off of it. Then obviously, at some point, they're like, if we can't do this, do we really want to go? And I was trying to find the article, another place where it showed, I think, one of the main patrons. I don't even know if it was like one of the first guys that was part of Sony, or if it was just somebody that was associated with Sony. It was due to this person that Sony was like, okay, let's get into this. Let's see what we can do. Then I think that gentleman passed away. Then I think it was probably at that point they're like, well, do we want to keep diving into this? Because our wealthy guy that's been throwing money our way is no longer throwing money our way. And if we can't find a practical purpose for this, they're like, I'm not quite sure. But I do believe that, there were definitely people, the whole thing about like chi, and especially, over in certain areas of the country, that life force, people have thought about it. And you see in other stories, though, they might call it, what they call it, some call it Gaia, it's like the earth energy and other stuff. But chi is like this other energy that the whole world, it's all around us. You can use it, there's different meditation methods. Like I used to, when I took Kung Fu, there was meditation when we were talking about Qigong, you're supposed to, so you close your eyes and you envision, like, say, like the light, the sunlight, this energy coming in through the top of your head, and then it would filter through your body, out your arms, down through your spine, out your legs, and then all the energy would flow out of your body into the soul, through the soles of your feet, into the earth. And then, so like all the, like say if you're just down and out and you're like, I'm not feeling today, I don't, whatever. You were supposed to feel and channel like the energy of the sun. Just think about that warmth and that energy going through and push out all that negativity. Let it just go right through the soul. And then it, like in your center points, when you start getting to like chakra and different other points, say in the very end, the center of your, like around your belly button, when you were done and nearing the end of the meditation, at least this is how we did it with this particular one, because we used to do it in just a Kung Fu class. I'm sure there's a bazillion different other methods. We used to come and just take our hands and fold over our belly. So think of you having all this light and energy going through. You would sort of form it and like let it sit, and then like hold it and like bottle it in at the very end, like in your stomach. And then you would sort of like through your mantra or whatever, sort of like stop the meditation process in that sense, like cutting off the chi flow, like, cause you stored it up, you pushed out all the bad energy and you stored up the good energy, and then you bottled it up, and then you entered, and then you could take that goodwill, the good feeling or whatever, and then you go on your day. And that whole mental practice of like focusing on the energy and other stuff, whether people believe in meditation or not, it works. You know, if you're able to sort of shape your mind, you know, to kind of do the sort of things. And so to have somebody say that's so into that, because obviously they grow up around people that have been practicing like Qigong and other stuff. They're like, can we find real proof of this? And then beyond that, can we find means to make money from it if we can find the proof of it, you know? So I get where there's probably at some point they're like, we have the money, we have the availability, we have some of the smartest people in the world. If we can assign somebody to like study this stuff, let's see what can happen.
Right.
And then at some point, you know, then the accountants take over.
I've heard that Sony as a corporation is quite Byzantine, and it is just, there are departments and departments and departments, and that like people lose track. Like if you're in the Sony bureaucracy, like it's like a kind of a government where it just has all these, like, no one knows who's working on what. So I can't believe that maybe, as a form of patronage, one of the high executives is like, you know what, I'm going to throw a few million this way and study this, and, you know, try to find something, some use for it. If you believe the UFO people, they say that the whole crash retrieval stuff that's been going on since the 50s, has been that material has gone to corporations and they have reverse engineered it, and some of the products we have today are because of UFO reverse engineering. That's if you believe that, whatever. So clearly that's they thought, and I don't know, maybe it could have come out of there's a CIA report that it's almost illegible, but it's basically a report from 1992, and it's part of the Stargate collection, which, if you know anything, that's the remote viewing project that the CIA launched. So which is also related to the Sony thing, because it turns out that they were doing a kind of a rudimentary version of remote viewing. From what I read, the Sacco would write a message or a design on a piece of paper, fold it up, and then have his students, or you call it research subjects, they would come in and basically do remote viewing. Like, what did I write down? And some would touch it, some would put it in their ear, and then afterward they'd write out or draw the thing. And by his estimate, he said that he had 97 point something accuracy. And and in this CIA report, they also talk about just why why Sony was interested in this is that there's in Japan, there is a general belief in parapsychological stuff. It's ingrained in their society to the extent that they don't consider some of this stuff even religious. Like some people would say, I'm not religious, but I practice Buddhism and Shinto, and I have regular rituals where I commune with spirits. And to the Western folks, that's like, oh no, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, no, that's the Japanese person would be like, no, that's real life. And it's interesting cultural how we like divide our stuff. And so, but maybe that's the thing, is in to Sony, it wasn't like, what are you doing? That's crazy. It's just, of course, why not study it? Because we've been told about this our whole lives. Let's go ahead and see. And if we can make a buck, let's make a buck.
Yeah. And I did. And oddly enough, I found the gentleman's name, Masaru Ibuka. He was one of the founding fathers, one of the co-founders of Sony. He was the guy who blessed the founding of Esper. He died in late 1997. They shuttered this laboratory down in July of 1998. Coincidence or not? I mean, the timeline certainly seems to add up closely, where if the main guy, the founder of the company, is into something, passes away, and you're like, can we get it off the books now?
Right. I guess now we just have to look for patents for dermacite and touchsite and come back to find out. And then we'll know for certain.
Yeah.
In a tragic incident in Pennsylvania, 46-year-old Jared Wolf is facing multiple charges, including first-degree murder, after allegedly shooting his girlfriend, Jane A. White. According to the authorities, Wolf claimed that after using a paranormal meter at a friend's house, he became convinced that White and others were plotting to kill and eat him. This paranoia reportedly led him to retrieve a handgun from his vehicle and fatally shoot White when she approached. Wolf did admit to smoking marijuana prior to the incident, but later expressed uncertainty about the substance. He is currently awaiting trial in Northumberland County Jail. I don't know.
They put something in his weed. They must have put some like
I've heard
some
PCP
that or some other shit or
stuff
something.
Can really mess you up.
If it was something like that, not like actual weed, and it was like I forget some of the shit they used to call it, spice. They used to have different names for some of that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Was crocodile one of those? Or is that something different?
That could have been or something.
I think that's the one that made the guy
lines.
a zombie and like he started eating people.
Yeah, I mean, like, some of that shit. It's all chemicals. It's all chemicals sprayed on some sort of herbal mixture on a lot of that stuff. And it's like, it was a crazy chemical high. I mean, I've seen people like smoke weed that had like PCP and other shit on it that really fucks with you, like to the point where it's not like a normal buzz. But even then, they weren't like wanting to shoot shit.
What's
this does
PCP
seem like
supposed
this
to do,
is
by the way? Is PCP supposed to make you happy, or is this supposed to make you a maniac? Because that's all I ever hear stories of, like he was on PCP and like it's he's lifting a car over his head. Like, what's the point of
it's definitely like more of a. I had once smoked weed that had PCP on it, and I remember just thinking like it tasted really like metallic. But for me, it was like a speediness onto much more so than what the weed was, but I didn't have any like rage, or I certainly didn't feel like super powered. But at that time I had tried a lot of things, so I was more like, this is different. Like I can notice the differences.
No, it says je ne sais
switch it
quoi.
around my mouth with a little whatever. Because I remember, I'll never forget the guy. I don't want to put his name out there. The guy that gave it to us. He was just like, "You smoked all that?" He's like, "Wow, y'all crazy." Because apparently you weren't supposed to smoke the whole joint like we did. You're supposed to just take a couple hits.
It didn't say that on the FDA warning.
Yeah. So, but we smoked a lot of weed at that time, so I think we just chalked it up as like, oh, it's not a normal whatever. But
so it just gave you a little extra pep. Is that?
Yeah, it was definitely like a weird, like a more of a like a pep, but like I could see where people that didn't have like weed to put it on it, say if you just did straight PCP, probably interacts completely different than if you sprinkle some of that on weed or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I can see what people maybe are, but I mean, it's not like I think crack has its different other buzz. I never actually tried crack, never sprinkled crack on my marijuana, so I can't speak from experience
Everything
on what
else except crack. I had a line. Heroin, of course. Just poured a bunch of that heroin on there. Delicious.
I put that in my orange juice,
Crack.
But,
no crack.
But yeah, I mean, for this guy to actually go as far, I hate it when they just chalk some things up to marijuana, because guys, marijuana is not going to make you see shit like this unless a dude has his own chemical imbalance. Right. That he just kind of got really anxious or whatever. But even then, you should just be getting like really, really anxious and awkward. You shouldn't be fucking hallucinating, seeing things and making shit up unless he has something else going on. But I would think more than likely, if it was smoking weed, somebody tampered with it, or if it was the synthetic shit, it's all chemicals.
Yeah.
Chemicals that you were not supposed to be doing.
Yeah. That was my first instinct. Cause I've talked to a few other people who've had like, had smoked weed before and then tried the chemicals or the
synthetic shit was fucked. It's gnarly,
so
man.
Bad.
It's different.
It was not fun. It like incapacitated them. So I'm like, it makes sense then that he probably was said this is weed, smoked it, and just got like what, and then I guess they're doing stuff that was probably scary. Like I don't know what, because you have to imagine.
Or he just got into his head and just probably had his own self-doubts about them all, or maybe just whatever, and it just acerbated all that other shit, that was already had his own little doubts or whatever. But I mean, that stuff, that's the part that where, it's just like, it kind of upsets you that if just marijuana was open and people could actually smoke the real stuff instead of like skirt the law and smoke these fake weed, these chemical products that were legal, because nobody at the time, eventually, I'm sure they used to go, when they'd find out about them, then they'd make that chemical assortment illegal or whatever once they found it out, and then the cops would say, okay, this mixture of this cannot be smoked or whatever, and then the people that made this shit would just change the chemical formula up a little bit and they would just make a new product. Whereas like you just wish that people are able to smoke real weed, like guys, they're gonna be okay, like they're not gonna be doing this shit when you do all these chemicals. So it just pissed me off that like this is what happens if they just would have let people smoke real marijuana, grow it or whatever. More than likely, you're not going to have crazy shit like this. But and it's unfortunate because somebody died from it. That shit's. But and I'm sure that's not isolated. I'm sure if they went back and found police reports of people that have shot or hurt somebody off of the fake one, it's probably lots of reports.
Right. I think just ODing and dying from those things is probably higher in itself, and you don't really get that from marijuana at all. Actually, the real stuff. The theme of being eaten, though, there's a through line here, or not a through line, but it comes back because in July 2022, Larry Doyle Sanders, who is 55, was arrested in Pontotoc County, Oklahoma, for the murder of his friend Jimmy Knighton. The two men were fishing in South Canadian River when Sanders claimed he believed Knighton intended to sacrifice him to Bigfoot. According to authorities, Sanders alleged that Knighton was summoning Bigfoot to kill him, leading Sanders to fatally attack Knighton in what he described as self-defense. In April of 2024, Sanders was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. During the trial, a forensic psychiatrist testified that Sanders was experiencing methamphetamine-induced psychosis at the time of the incident. So again, drugs, fun drugs, and not the mellow drugs. This is the straight-up methamphetamine.
Yeah, that's bad shit.
Yeah,
that's bad shit. So he thought Bigfoot was going to make jerky out of him or something? I mean, like,
I don't know. And I wonder, see, part of me also tells, because kind of back to the first story too, I do wonder if these people are getting high, right? And maybe everyone's high, but some are feeling a little more mischievous. And so the intention, maybe Wolf, it seemed like he wasn't necessarily like didn't smoke a lot of weed himself, because he's like, I don't know what I smoked. Or maybe that could just mean he's just a promiscuous smoker and just smokes anything. But it also gives me the sense that like he just didn't know what he was smoking, and they told him this and he had suspicions, and then they were just taking advantage of him, and then just like, we're gonna go look for ghosts. Ooh, Jared, are you afraid of ghosts? You afraid of ghosts? And just getting him ramped up because they knew he's gonna be paranoid because he's on he's on drugs, and maybe he's 46 years old. Maybe who knows? He's maybe never smoked before. And so they get him into that frame of mind. He's beginning to become suspicious of them.
Then he becomes suspicious
of everything. Yep. Yeah. And then maybe the whole ghost meter thing, maybe he's very he really invested in, maybe that's why they brought the ghost meter out anyway. Cause he's like, really,
I was going to say, I wanted to see what this ghost meter was in the first place.
I think I couldn't find anything specific about it. I'm guessing it could just be like an EVP meter, just like a standard, the electromagnetic type thing. But either way, but I feel like there's a story in there somewhere that not just like him, just like they're taking out the meter, going, bam, 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 bam. Hey, I think there's a ghost in here, and he goes and kills everybody. I think that there's something there was eating pushing him. Then he broke, and that's just a theory. I don't know. I'm not trying to exonerate the guy. But the same thing comes up with this case of Sanders and Knighton, where I do wonder, like, why did it occur to him that he was being sacrificed? And I keep thinking maybe that Knighton they're getting high, and this guy is just like, oh, you hear that clock, 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 the wood knocks, in the distance. You know what that is? Larry? And it's like, no, I don't know what the hell that is. That's fucking Bigfoot. It's
Bigfoot sharpening his knife.
Yeah, he's got
sharpening his fork and knife.
Let's go paddle toward it. No, man, what the fuck are you doing? I don't want to go paddle, but I don't want to go see Bigfoot. Go paddle to it, Larry. It's like, fuck you. You're gonna get eaten today, Larry, you son of a bitch. I don't know. I'm just adding this little story there. But
so the moral of the story is if you're taking synthetic weed or methamphetamines, do not joke about being eaten
right
at all, or your risk of dying goes through the roof. There are certain things when you think about it. There are certain things, I think, when you think about ways to go, what a horrific thought of being eaten alive that I think most people would probably lose their shit as well. And if you're on some fucking serious wacky shit, that would probably drive you to do some wacky stuff. But note to self, I will not do that.
Right. Yeah. And so the next story is also much more tragic. It involves Matthew Taylor Coleman. He was a California surf instructor and a QAnon adherent. And he is accused of fatally stabbing his 2 young children in Mexico in August of 2021. He allegedly believed they possessed serpent DNA and that their deaths were necessary to save the world. Since his arrest, Coleman has been deemed incompetent to stand trial, exhibiting incoherent speech and self-harming behaviors while in custody. Despite his mental state, a judge has denied further extensions for his defense to respond to treatment plans, with a deadline set for February 18th, which is only a few days after we recorded this. Federal prosecutors have decided not to pursue the death penalty in this case. I don't know why. I think they should. But if he really, I mean, this whole story just sounds like a guy. So it was, I think, post-COVID, everyone's getting into QAnon, and him and his wife had started researching it. And he's the one that just he really sank into it. And the whole serpent DNA thing, there's back then, it sounds like an amalgamation of the David Icke lizard people hypothesis and the idea that there was serpent DNA in the COVID shot. There was a lot of weird vaccine conspiracies back then. One of them was that it had snake venom or snake DNA in it. And I can't be certain that that's what they believe, but the whole serpent DNA sounds like an amalgamation of all those things. Regardless, he went down the rabbit hole, and I don't know how, as a father, that you get to that point where you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to, and you use a spear gun. It's like, I don't know, what? It doesn't make any sense to me, but also that makes me think. And now sounds like he's completely lost his mind. But this is clearly, I think he was teetering on the edge for a while. I don't know if he has any drug dependencies like our other friends here.
I mean, if you're buying into all that shit, you have pretty much mental illness to start, and then to really fully go, and then to go that far. And then, like you said, they take the death penalty off the table or whatever. Like, why?
Right.
What redeeming qualities are you trying to save for the world at this point? I have no sympathy for him. Just fucking kill him. Yeah, just be done with it.
The only thought is that, if he really is that incapacitated, then I could see them saying, well, it would just be
adding on to the pile of bodies or something.
Well, it would just be unfair, which is a terrible thing. But it would just be okay, well, he can't really help himself.
Who couldn't help themselves either?
The two
kids that he killed.
Yeah. I personally would have no. Yeah, this is one of those cases where death penalty. I'm like, yeah, that's why they made this thing. It's he admitted to it. There's no mystery. We're not looking for a one-armed man. He did it, and if anything, he should step up and say, yeah, do it to me. You failed as a person. So yeah. But
that's horrible.
And I do wonder though, how, these ideas in the minds of very fragile people can be very, very destructive. And it's kind of it's why we need to be more responsible for some of the weird stuff we say about Democrats drink the blood of children, maybe you want to research that a little more. Just keep researching, keep reading into that.
Because crazy people out there believe it.
Yeah, and they will eventually like kill someone because of it. And it's whatever. I mean, it's the times we live in too, and I guess there's really no policing it, especially if we live in a democracy with free speech and stuff. But it's I don't know. We got to be nicer to each other. Be nicer. Just calm down. Even though right now Donald Trump is the president and Elon Musk is the co-president, and I don't feel like being nice to them. But I still haven't called for their assassinations. So that's pretty nice. That's calm. It's like let's not do that. We still have the law for a few more months. Yeah,
they have not dismantled law.
Right.
I will give kudos to the prosecutors and people that did. That's tough. I'm sure they got a little money in the bank, but anybody that resigns their position when you're forced to do something that goes against everything that your job is supposed to be doing, like especially when it seems like they were being forced to drop the case against the
Eric Adams.
Yeah, up in New York.
Yeah.
I give kudos to those prosecutors and those that stepped away and resigned from their job before they were forced to do something just absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
More political shenanigans.
Integrity still exists, but
for a little bit, like you said, for a couple more months.
Yeah, exactly. For a couple more months.
Soon they're going to call it, Dogettity or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
United States of Doge.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous.
On that note, that's the show. Treat yourself better, folks, and just think happy thoughts, and then it'll all go away.
And stay away from the synthetic weed, for God's sake. Go to a state that has real shit or get a medical license. Don't smoke fake weed, people.
That's the PSA. Yes. That's the real
PSA. That's the PSA. Don't smoke that fake shit. You will lose your mind, and you might hurt somebody that doesn't deserve to be hurt.
Oddnormal's What in the Weird is a production of KTLU in association with Rotten Baby Media. Because it's all part of a 7-year study in futility, the show is produced by me and Cold Coffee. The show is edited by yours truly on behalf of anyone who's ever been very afraid that a family member is secretly a cannibal, but has the courage to just chill. Full episodes are posted to YouTube and Spotify. If you'd like to support the show, write a petition demanding that the X-Files be protected from Mr. Mars. Do that tomorrow. We have socials at Oddnormal on Blue Sky, TikTok, and all of them.
All those things.
Yeah. Most of all, thank you for listening. Now go live in wonder.
Oddnormal.